Hello, everybody.
Very sad looking ferret on this recording. Anyway, sorry, let's
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 52 of the nmasp interrupts me during the introduction podcast,
it wouldn't be the SPNatI podcast if I didn't do that.
also known as the Strip Poker Night at the Inventory podcast. Episode 52. You might have noticed Corky has died once again, and in his place, the original nmasp clone, nmasp himself, is back. Hello, nmasp. What's up?
Not much. It's really the traditional comics arc. You know, the clone replaces the main person comes back, sales go up. It's all very exciting. Also on the cast with us today is long-standing SPNatI mod and contributor Arndress.
Good evening.
So, for the uninitiated, can you briefly remind the viewers, what have you worked on? What are you currently working on?
Sure. I'm the author of Nagisa with beautiful art by Horse Killer. She's on the testing roster right now. You can try her. And I wrote Overwatch's Mei, Nugi-chan, Sanako. I wrote most of Diva, wrote a lot of Panty, Korra, Pokemon's Mei. All of the targeted lines that Moon has are mine. I created the dev server. I made all of its emojis. I invented the testing tables. I proposed the resort, the very first resort, and I ran it. I suggested the idea of targeted lines, the idea of saying marker, the idea of the after masturbating case, backgrounds for preset tables, nicknames, and I really pushed hard for play stats. I didn't actually make any of those because coding people that are better than me did that, but I think if it were not for me, they wouldn't have happened so quickly. I also run SPNatI, the trading card night at the inventory. I'm one of the game mods. I was part of the game mod team that brought on Pat, Master Fate, someone named nmasp that you might know, Reform Copyright, Mr. Solitaire. Bowsette was my suggestion for the crowdsource character. I can be heard on episode 27 of the podcast. I made Mia's old epilogues, and it was me who adapted Rinka's old beach epilogue so that it could be played by female players, so you're welcome for that one. I uploaded and periodically update the Newgrounds and Old Grounds versions of the game, and I've had some success spreading the word about the game in other subreddits and elsewhere.
Boy, we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel with guests here, aren't we?
I mean, we have the alpha and the omega on here. So Arndress's pedigree and contributions to the game really cannot be overstated. It's the game would not be where it is without him. As for myself, I am nmasp. I am a former developer moderator and subreddit moderator. I'm currently working on a couple different projects. The ones that are most relevant are Sucrose with art by Horsekiller, Marinette to go with Adrian. Adrian is currently one of the male characters I'm working on with art by The Lonely Phone Box. And I've got several other projects in flight, such as Akko, Natsuki with art by Hex. And yeah, I think that's really what I'm working on these days. But more lines from all those characters very soon.
I'm here every time. I feel like I don't need to reintroduce myself. I have a boner for Maya. I like spacesuits.
It is known. Yeah.
So
it's we all have our type.
Is there anything you want to briefly introduce or get out of the way before we get into testing characters? We do have quite a bit of those to cover, as well as a lot of main roster releases since we've been stuck in the testing marshlands for a while.
Yeah, I mean it's good for the healthy state of the game that so many things are coming in. And
oh, absolutely, I like all the new faces. I will say we have adopted an actual official rule change since this podcast and last. It has been a while since last podcast, since we gave Solitaire a mammoth editing job. Thank you very much for dealing with that. There were a lot of rumblings about how basically every time someone joined the server asking if they wanted to make their original character do not steal, they were always met with the same chorus of well, you shouldn't do that for this reason and that reason, and it either kind of bounced off them or they just kind of left. Nobody really liked going through that song and dance. It just kind of made everybody feel bad. So it's a lot easier to just say we have a rule against it. So we are not banning original characters entirely. Don't get that impression, because we do have some good ones.
And we're talking about a few of them today.
It's just we want to sort of make sure you're here for the game itself and not purely self-promotion, I guess you could say. In addition to kind of saving new creators from themselves, because it's very easy to want to make your original character and then realize that it's doubly difficult to do so. So it is now an official rule and maybe the mods can get more insight on this as to why he finally adopted this, but it is an official rule that the first character you submit to the main roster as like a main credit cannot be an original character.
So I was high on mushrooms during the 4th of July when we got this character in Mod Mail that was just like, I could not believe that it was real, and had an entire conversation about that character. And it was
oh god, are we?
It was very clear.
Are we bringing up this character?
We're not going to go into detail. It would be it would really piss off a lot of people if we talked about it in depth. But it's moral of the story is like a lot of work goes into making any character that reaches the testing table or testable phases, and I think the discourse around OCs was basically, first of all, you got to learn how the game works before you can play it using your own rule set. You know what I mean? So I think that saves you from themselves, to your point. It also means that like it discourages the developing in a vacuum for something which has no canonicity to it. Like if you show up, for instance, with a character that's pretty complete, but is from a source that people can audit, for lack of a better term, it's probably going to be better for the game than someone who's just like, well, this character can be whatever I say they are, but no one else has that like point of context or reference, which makes it really difficult to even establish them in the context of the game itself. So those are kind of my thoughts on it, but I think this is a rule that's a long time coming, and it's just better to have in place than to kind of imply like in law than by fact. So those are my thoughts.
I think the character that we received in Mod Mail was really the poster child for why we needed this rule. But I think even looking back at past characters, if you look at the original characters that have been abandoned, some of them are better than others, but some of them, I guess, Bias is quite an example of his own. But it would be really nice if someone could pick up Bi the way that, say, Lux was picked up and make it into a real character. But because there's not really any history or anything to draw on, it's quite a challenge.
Yeah, that's some good insight too. I think in general, there's something to be said about adoptability in general. As far as like as the game grows and scales, like I know I can't do this forever. I know everyone's kind of time comes up in any given hobby, and I love doing it. But I also think that there's going to come a time where I'm just like, yep, I can't do this anymore. Someone pick up the slack. And if you look at someone like Gwen, who admittedly not my best work. Bowenberger picked her up and has done a really great job of like revising and rewriting her versus, some other characters. It's hard to do that, but I think the broader conversation.
Oh yeah, apparently he didn't even know that like you were the writer for her.
Yeah, God, that was like such a wild feeling. It's just like, yeah, like look at whoever wrote this person was a fucking idiot, and I'm like, I wrote that. It's like, oh. And then like it's just like, it's okay. I'm not like offended. It's I'll own up to where my work is not as good as it could be. But I guess like in the terms of like something that I'm focused on as I sort of rotate and wind down out of the game, despite reality's best efforts to prevent me from finishing things on time, is what does the game look like in 3-4 years, right? How do we make rules now that are going to save the mods of 2026 stress? And that's really all I want to do. It's just because like people are very passionate about this. It's a small game, so loud voices go a lot further, and just being able to make good jurisprudence around it is really important. So I think the next battleground on like mod dictums is going to be what happens when you leave the game, like who gets to pick up your stuff. I think the rules right now are pretty adequate, but the concern on everyone's mind is always like, well, what do you do to like essentially counter spite versus like genuine passion for something? And at some level you can leave that as like a mod decision, be like, we trust the mods, but I, for various reasons, think that people tend not to respond favorably to that in general. But in specific, I think that it's just better to have a rule that like everyone has to follow than it is to rely on like the way the wind is blowing that given day.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll be the first to say, I'm not exactly the champion of incredible star power in my character submissions. So I don't think that like every character needs to be like super popular, or have like a lot of pre-established popularity in the year 2021. But just having like something to Google is, I think, really beneficial for not only the people trying to help you and, you know, make this character look right, make them sound right, but for players to go, you know, if they give them a try, be like, you know, if they like your OC, well, the buck kind of stops here. They just they can play SPNatI. Whereas, you know, if they like your obscure character, at least they could go look up that show. They could go look up that video game. They could give it a try, and they could find something they really like. I think it just, you know, in the end, it just like creates more engagement overall. And again, it's not like you can't make an OC. It's just you can't start with an OC.
I mean, I think there's like a lot of really good OCs too, but it's like I think the day that I look forward to is the day where someone's OC is just like gets substantiated into a broader piece of media. It's just like there's this thing on TV tropes. By the way, don't go down that rabbit hole, folks. Is it's called like the bleached panties or something, or it's like someone gets a start like drawing like hentai or whatever, and then like they go legit, but it's like really hard to separate from that. But I kind of look forward to the day that someone's like OC from this is just like, yes, and now they're a star of this webcomic or whatever.
I'm pretty sure a lot of like manga artists got their start in hentai.
It's what pays. It really does. Like,
well, it sells and it teaches you anatomy.
I know someone who's a veterinarian and basically paid their way through vet school using like commissions for furry artists, and I'm just like, this seems like a very interesting conflict of interest. But you know, you do. God. So, anyway,
are they themselves a furry?
No, I don't think so. I think there's some other things going on there, but I don't think they're a furry.
Yeah, that's very odd from a veterinarian.
I think the art came before the vet stuff. In fairness, so yeah.
I don't know if it's relevant which order it came in. It's still
Actually,
yeah, it's kind of anyway. Whatever. It's like
I'm tempted to put this on. I would never judge anyone for doing this sort of thing. How could I? I mean, unless it was like something really weird.
Yeah.
But maybe, you know, something like their eyes inflating or some shit.
Yeah.
All veiny.
Yeah.
But
oh god.
I don't know. I'm tempted to put this on a resume one day. Just be, or like when pressed, be like, oh, but it's tasteful pornography. It's erotica.
You know, it's like if anyone ever, just like anyone listening to this, is like, if you are a creator in good standing and you ever need someone to like speak to your project management experience regarding this game, like I've learned more about like what I do now for a living than I ever did in grad school. So it's you know, it's like stay passionate, because I think you deal with some very interesting people in life, and I've learned a lot from dealing with people in SPNatI, both good and less good.
Well, the best teacher is experience, and we do get a lot of characters here. So
yeah, we do.
Characters is in people in the dev community.
But anyway, I think it's like to the earlier point regarding OCs and like, do we like, you know, what the character comes from? I think the non-OC, you know, a lot of the content in SPNatI that I've like really enjoyed has prompted me to go out and, you know, engage with it. You know, like back in like 2016, 17, like Nagisa is what prompted me to like watch the first season of Clannad. And then there's been a couple others like that, I think. But I don't remember a lot of the details of specific examples right now, but I'll think of them as we go through it.
I think to what you were saying before, spnanon, about it's nice to be able to Google someone. I think if an OC is well developed and you can play with them, you can get a good experience just playing with them to really get their personality, that's great. Before a first-time creator who their character might not really have enough characterization yet, it is very difficult to help them with no source, no world. But with an established OC, like for example, Bluecoin has made many OCs, and I feel like if I play with them, I understand their deal.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The question might be raised, what if somebody submits an OC and they didn't see that rule or they didn't think it applied to them? I think they can hold on to that character, and if they are interested in developing a different character, they will have much better expectations and be able to make that OC give the best impression it possibly can, because who here had their first character as their best character when it released? It was Nagisa's first release was not in a condition that I would like to see her in now.
Well, I've been trying to make my first character my best character in subsequent updates.
I think the thing I always come back to is just like the only character that was perfect on release was like Komi-san, and that's it. Like that's one in like 250, but that's it, right? It's like there's just like one, and it's like
Even that wasn't Phonebox's first effort. He did other stuff for the game before that.
yeah, that's true.
He did some alt skins. He did like Maya's Cupid alt. He did the Ghost Bride for Weiss.
The dialogue too.
I don't know about the dialogue.
Yeah, for Ghost Bride-wise, I can see it. It sounds like Phonebox. But anyway, speaking of the broad, wide world out there, there's very few worlds as broad and as wide as the MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV.
Let me make one final point about the OC rule here. Listen,
Okay.
don't worry. It's very succinct.
You know, I hear that everyone's character is someone's OC.
We don't ever say that. It's like the most fucking overdone. We know. Yeah, nice fucking originality there, Jethro. Listen, this game is very anime dominated. Obviously, a lot of characters are Japanese. A lot of characters are like white cartoon characters. I understand when people say that we want POCs, but we do not want POCs.
Sorry, what? Sorry, I didn't understand the point.
Just think about it when this episode comes out. So moving on to testing.
Oh, okay, I see. Oh my god. Okay, fine. Yeah. So anyway, moving on to Final Fantasy.
Moving on to
14
testing. Yeah.
And our continued diversity in the game, not at all related to the previous topic, but we have
a different race.
we have a cat. You know, we have a cat girl. And also a disabled cat girl at that because Yashtola is blind. So spnanon.
Have you played Final Fantasy 14 at all?
No, I haven't played an MMO since WoW.
I don't know. You were introducing it like you had played it.
I'm just good at lying. So.
Well, we know that, don't you?
And
you wrote fucking say having not played Valhalla.
Oh yeah, that was pretty.
Dirty, rotten, cheater, fraud.
And nobody knew the winner survives.
I haven't played Valhalla.
Yeah, I know, right? So if you don't know, how do you know? Like that's my thing with those. Okay, last thing about OCs is like if you were just like wanted to do an OC, the cheat codes are get horse killer to make you a model and say they're from a Fire Emblem game. That's it. Like that is the entire thesis. Like
no one would know.
Napsu said that, and I'm just like, you know what? I don't think that's wrong. I think like I've never played Fire Emblem. I don't think anyone's played Fire Emblem. I think they're all just OCs.
It's just like a medieval waifu simulator, character creator.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's one of those old like Flash create a character like games on Newgrounds where you just like put different armor on them. Okay, so I claim full culpability for what I'm about to say here. We should have covered Y'shtola. I hope I'm saying that right. From Final Fantasy XIV.
It's Y'shtola.
Y'shtola?
Yash.
Y'shtola?
You use the apostrophe like an A, I think.
Why isn't it an A then?
Because it's a fantasy world.
That doesn't mean they have the right to just butcher spelling.
I was looking up before we came in. I think it's Y'shtola.
Y'shtola.
Like toe, like the big toe. Y'shtola.
I thought that Y was kind of like, Yvonne or something. Listen, we should have covered this character a lot sooner. Whatever the fuck her name is. She released June 13th, 2021, so like 2 full episodes ago. We didn't cover a lot in episode 51, and we were supposed to cover her in episode 51.5. We went like 3 extra hours. Well, not 3 extra. We went 3 hours, an hour over what we usually do, and made Solitaire suffer through that for weeks. Because we wanted to finish the testing roster, and we didn't finish the testing roster. We forgot about Y'shtola. I don't know how. I played her, I liked her, but somehow she just completely slipped my mind. I was blind to her, much like she is blind. And nobody else noticed either. Now, it's not these guys' fault. They weren't on the podcast. I was the one running it. But yeah, we should have covered her, and we didn't.
The characters at the end of the alphabet are always disadvantaged because if anyone does anything systematically, the A's and the B's and the C's, they're all fine. But the Y's, I'm sorry, sister.
Yeah.
I guess we should start off then. So, Arndress, you are the guest. Why don't you go ahead and give us your thoughts on Y'shtola? Really hope we're saying that right. You know what would be really nice is to have a pronunciation guide in the characters meta files.
That would be good. Just replace the height property. That's not doing anything right now.
That would be very good. Can we do that?
Actually, that's actually really smart. I'm gonna put a merge request in for that. Give me a second.
Yeah, if you don't know,
So anyway, Arndress, take it away. I'm gonna put this in the mod queue. It's just like a suggestion.
if you don't know, in the character information and like in the obviously you two know, but for people listening, in the character editor and in the character's meta files, there's like a height. There's like a height marker that you can add in, which does absolutely fucking nothing. You'd think it would like scale them to everyone else, but it doesn't.
And I mean, characters probably shouldn't even really be scaled anyway, because it is just a lot more fun if everybody is relatively the same size, because you don't want really tiny characters you can't see well. Just make them all seeable.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Jotaro would be like going up to the ceiling if we scale him properly.
Oh, Jotaro, Rosalina would be going up to the ceiling. She's like 12 foot tall.
And she floats.
I had this idea back like early in SPNatI development to do like Iragemagori from Kill Kill, but like he's just hunched over and like lifting up the text box the whole time.
He's always as big as the entire frame. That's what matters.
Yeah, it's great. So
like height,
Y'shtola.
You can enter height into the character editor. It never shows up in the game. It does nothing.
It has never been useful for anything.
Yes.
But what is useful for something is Y'shtola is a great SPNatI opponent.
I'm sorry, I want to bitch about height. I mean, it's literally not even standardized. Like, some people put it in metric and some in imperial and some both. Literally pointless. You might as well be pissing into that box for all it's doing.
Include weight and make Mike very upset.
That's all the time we have for on the podcast. I hope we didn't forget anything. Let's say our goodbyes.
Yeah, all right, good talk, guys.
I think originally some people wanted like an age box, which would just cause a lot of controversy.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Which, I mean, I'd be fine with it because my characters are all, they're all, of age.
Everyone's characters are all 18. What are you talking about? Anyway, so Y'shtola is so Arndress. Let's get your thoughts on this as the guest. Then I'll go because I'm like the mod errant and editor errant and whatever, and then SPNanon. Okay, cool.
I likewise have not played Final Fantasy 14. I've played a bunch of Final Fantasies, but not this one. She was more refined than I expected, and I like that. I feel like there aren't too many characters who have like a dignified era around them. And yet at the same time, she was like more of an ENF character, which took me by surprise. And as the person who made Nagisa before every schoolgirl was ENF, that's something that I liked too. I liked her art. Her poses where she's stripping, it seemed like she was taking a lot of effort to stay upright, like she was trying to balance a book on her head. But maybe that goes with like her trying to keep like a dignified look. I actually completely forgot she was blind until it was mentioned previously. I did not even think about that one time.
Well, she uses magic to see, apparently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I have some thoughts on this, but I'll let Arndress finish.
Okay, so she's not really blind then, I guess.
Yeah.
That's okay. I think really the only thing I saw that I felt she should work on was, and I know that Fence, aka Just Kidding, knows that this is an issue, but she seemed to like do these exposition dumps out of nowhere. What she said was interesting, but it just kind of seemed like she said it for no reason. It wasn't prompted by what was happening. I'm not saying she should say, well, this is a really terrible hand instead, but it did kind of seem uninvited, and I think I'd like to see it fit in a more natural way.
I'm going to agree with most of these things. I have very conflicting feelings with Y'shtola. I think the art is really good. I think the presentation is pretty strong. The exposition dumps never really like bothered me. I think I can be kind of guilty of that too, when it's like, oh, we don't understand anything about this character's world, so please include it. And I just like make a bunch of any hand lines. So I'm not going to shame someone for my own weaker practices. On the whole, there's a lot of good things that I really like about Y'shtola. I like the tone. I like the commentary she uses. I think the big challenges I run into, and you're going to see this, this is a little bit more critical because this character is pretty polished, and I think there's ways to improve them, is that the blindness thing not coming up just feels like a huge miss. I understand that it's like, it's not core to this character. She has, a workaround for it, but I think it's worth mentioning in some ways, just because it's like, oh, I don't know if like her eyes are that color because that's just what, the cat girls look like or what. And I think having that come up organically in targeted lines is probably good, but if no one knows, it's sort of pointless. So I don't know if that's the value there, but I think exploring that a little bit more granularly is probably a good thing. The other thing that this is way too late in the game to change this, and I'm not suggesting this be done. I really don't like that her outfit doesn't change very much until the final two stages. That for me is really frustrating because it's like, yes, I understand that she has like a lot of layers, but they're all, elegant black item X, and it takes a long time to get to anything of substance. And I think when your character is not changing visually or even in terms of their verbal content, it can be really quite a lot to just carry through. It's not that exciting. I think her dialogue is good. I think the intentfulness here is incredible for a first character. And I think the extra content for like when she does like the limit break.
Not their first character.
What is it?
They made Bobobo.
Oh, Bobo and like Ashtola came out at the same time, or near the same time in my brain. So I think I just treat this one as coming first. I also think that like Bobobo was like an April Fool's project that wasn't an April Fool's project. So my apologies, but
I don't know what the fuck Bobobo was supposed to be.
I don't know. Bobo is great. Bobo is a gift. Never change.
I had a hard time believing. Wait, it was like this was made by the same person who made Bobobo. She's like not a joke.
Yeah, the epilogue, and like the epilogue is great. The epilogue is great. Bobo's in that one too, and it's wild. But anyway, moral of the story is like, I think this is a great effort. There's some things that I don't like, but I don't think they're like damning. And it would be interesting to see how she continues to evolve. I think the biggest miss for me is just like, I really wish she engaged with the tables she was at more, either through filtered lines or targeted lines, just like outside of the people that engage with her first. That to me would add a lot to the character to give more nuance to her world.
I think with the blindness thing, I mean, you could bring it up, but the point is she's not really blind. So the only thing you could really comment on is like, I guess her eyes look kind of milky, which I don't know. Maybe you could do some kind of maybe you could do some kind of dirty talk with that. Like she could pretend she's blind for a little bit. It's like, ooh, you gotta do everything by feel. Ooh, I don't know what you're gonna do to me.
Oh man, there's something there. It's not for me, but I definitely understand why it's there.
I understand what you're talking about how she doesn't change much visually. I mean, I posted here. You can see like this is stage 4 or 5, and then like the very next one, it's like everything's gone. I will say Jura is kind of guilty of that, although I did that on purpose.
I think she shows off more in the beginning though.
She just like loses a bunch of little trinkets, and then the dress is coming off. It's all one thing.
Interestingly, I think this is something that her Scion Vacation, a reskin, does a lot better. It really shows the layers coming off in a way that's more visually interesting.
There's been this big trend of like characters still on testing getting alt costumes, which I find surprising. Like Twisted Fate got one and was on main for a little bit for like Valentine's Day.
Yeah, it's cool. I think it adds a lot. But yeah, I agree that the other skin shows off things a little bit more. It's a little interesting more early. And I think the difference between Yashdol and Jura is that Jura shows skin early. So even if nothing's changing, it's like the interest level is there.
Jura's not dressed like a Quaker.
Yeah, like the Quaker Oats bottle.
I have not played any 3D Final Fantasy game. I'm very old school. I played the first one and then 4, 5, and 6. I enjoyed them, but this MMO shit, this is way out of my wheelhouse.
I played 11.
Still got time to play Final Fantasy X before the new unit comes to testing.
I'm sure I'd enjoy it. I just haven't gotten around to any of those games. I didn't have them when I was a kid. I'm sure I could just emulate them now or something.
Regarding Yushel, I do have one more thing to say.
Yeah.
Is her underwear canon? Like, it seems somewhat plain, especially for someone of her station. And I was just wondering, like, is that like the player underwear in the game? Is
yeah,
a reference to
that? I think so. That seems accurate to me.
I mean, like some kind of medieval underwear could be. I imagine it'd be pretty plain, at least for most people. I mean, who's even supposed to see it, really?
That's true, but then there's like realism, and then there's fiction realism.
It probably wouldn't look like modern day, I don't know, silk or nylon or whatever. But
no, I'm not suggesting it should. It's just
I'm sorry. Now I'm thinking about the Seinfeld scene where George's mom goes to get a bra. They're like arguing over the cups and what it's made out of.
Anyway, good character. Keep working. Nice job.
So, while I was talking about my experience with Final Fantasy, it's weird to it's like I'm Rip Van Winkle and she's talking about stuff that I vaguely remember, but it's changed in the last 30 years. So apparently, black mages have like high defense now, which is like what?
What?
That ain't right. They're squishy wizards.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
That doesn't make any
in
sense.
her game at least, and like, oh god, she mentions how like her boss basically, like the Grand Witch that she serves under, or whatever, is like named Matoya, who's like the witch in the very first Final Fantasy that you help out.
Uh-huh.
She has like brooms that talk backwards and all this shit. So it's just it's cool little references like that. Although I sometimes feel like I'm playing blind, a lot like she is. I will say I really like her. Very strong voice, a lot like Bobo. In that respect, you can kind of see the similarities. She's a very promising new creator, which makes me feel doubly bad that we didn't get to her sooner. But she's been like steadily improving, and I really like where she's going. Like she's pretty much, I'd consider, main roster ready. She doesn't have any glaring flaws. She's got some interesting targeted lines. I will say, like, she has a lot of like really weird esoteric stuff that she talks about because she like studies like this aether crystal energy that's like unique to her source material. But she knows it so well that she doesn't always really like explain it very well, or like what the scions are, or she talks about how she's from the first, which apparently means like from the first world or universe or something, but she doesn't really explain that, and it can be very confusing to an unfamiliar reader what it is exactly she's referring to all the time. Like even like you read her description, and all I get is like, who's that? What's that? What does that mean? Even though I want to learn about all these things, she doesn't quite provide that yet.
I thought the first was when the game got rebooted, but that just was my guess.
Oh, I don't know. That might be one way to put it, or a classy way of putting how your MMO was broken at launch. Only other things, I thought she was like old as hell at first. I thought she was she was like 50 years old because she has white hair and like, I mean, the milky eyes, and I thought like those markings on her cheeks kind of looked like wrinkles.
The SPNatI Elderly Edition.
Oh no.
I mean, I was all ready for like Foxy Grandma, but no, she's like 23. So I don't quite know what you can do about that. I don't think she looks bad, and she looks.
We get to Foxy Grandma later in this podcast.
She looks sufficiently young now that I know she's young, but well, I think the other thing is that she's kind of like short and stout. She's kind of got wide hips. She's probably a little like thicker than she kind of looks in the source material, which kind of helps give that impression of being a little bit older. Maybe her bangs. I think her bangs kind of look like a bunch of hair pieces. Like if you use Kisuke, you can tell, oh, those are just hair pieces, kind of stacked on top of each other. They could use some shading, sort of give them like make them a little more distinct from each other and from her face. But all on the whole, these are just nitpicks. Like she's got a very strong, like I said before, very strong tone, very strong voice. You can tell it's her speaking because she's got like this sort of medieval sorcerer, like, aye, that be the way it shall be. The spirits surround us.
I had forgotten, but that was my first impression too, is that I thought she was a lot older, but I had completely forgotten that because when I was playing with her, I didn't get that impression. But just to see her, that's how I felt.
Oh, the other thing that was weird is like she was generally pretty coy and seemed to be enjoying herself. It's like, oh, I got a strip, whatever. And then like for one very brief period, like when she had to get fully naked, she started getting really embarrassed, and she was surprisingly averse to stripping. And then when she had to masturbate, like she was like covering herself, and then when she had to masturbate, she went right back to being coy. So I was like, what was that about?
That's quality content.
It's just appealing to all fetishes. Anyway, so sorry we didn't get to her sooner, but she's just had that much more time to improve, and I really like her. If you haven't played her yet, go give her a try. She's definitely nice. You could say she's more mainstream palatable than Boba.
A little bit, just slightly, ever so slightly, a little bit more appealing to most people.
She does not take off her clothes by ripping them up with her nose hair.
I mean, that's just a missed opportunity, isn't it?
Oh God, please don't. So next character is Wasp from Marvel Comics, also known as Janet. As someone who is not in the Marvel verse very much, I think it's always good to see characters like this. This is nice to see. I'll let the two of you go first with this. So, Arndress, any thoughts on Wasp or Janet?
Wasp from Disney's Marvel's
Oh God,
Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, a Disney story.
Oh God,
which I have not watched, but I got a really good first impression of this character. I only tried this character this week, so I got to enjoy the updates all in one package. Something I really enjoyed was you can tell when people are like students of the game before they start. You know, sometimes it comes across as really complicated cases or conditions or things like that from a first-time author. But what I liked about this was from, is it Rahabim 87? That the dialogue used, well, maybe not, I didn't look under the cover, so I didn't actually see the cases, but there was really clever situational stuff, like good lines for clothing removal that seemed to use recipes or were super appropriate, and just witty dialogue and plenty of interesting things to say. And it made me think of not the person who plays one game and thinks I should make a character for this, but a person who plays lots of games and thinks I want to make the best character I can, and just wrote in that direction as much as possible. For the model, I like this model was donated by Superfluous. He and Hoskiller donate models, which is very nice of them. I like the hair. I thought the hair was really cool. And in general, I thought the way that it was posed was just like a really nice surprise for like a first-time contributor. I went in with zero expectations and enjoyed myself.
I really like the artwork. I think for me, the point of criticism is just that she's gone through a few revisions, and as someone who's not incredibly familiar with her source, I think she does do the thing, you know, this is a common thing. It's not really that critical, but she does a thing where she leans a lot on her source material as far as like, you know, oh, so-and-so had me do this, and I know these things. And she explains it, which is good, but I think like seeing her in the context of the SPNatI, it's like the individual character's world matters, but it's not important in context as who that character is as a person. So being able to engage with the people around her in ways that are interesting or novel is kind of important. I also think that I think the Wasp in canon has the ability to like shrink. I don't believe she did that in my game with her. So I think there's something to be said about a missed opportunity there, just from not from like a gimmick standpoint, but just as a point of interest. I think that might be something worth considering.
She did talk about it a lot though in the game.
Yeah, I know, but she didn't do it, right? So it's like
something good for like a custom pose, or I mean, you don't really want to be shrinking in the game because then you can't really see anything.
It's a good response to like panic if Amy the gun Amy starts shooting.
Gun Amy match.
I mean, if any Amy starts shooting, you should probably dodge.
Yeah, shrink.
You know, she should like shrink in a game with like Navi.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, I can do that too. Yeah, she's like Ant-Man, I think, because they had that movie together, Man on the Wasp or whatever. I think she has like the same power. She like shrinks down, and that makes her stronger somehow.
Proportional strength or something.
I don't know. I don't think she was in Endgame or whatever, but I'm gonna assume she could also defeat Thanos by flying up his asshole and then expanding.
Or his urethra.
Yeah, but that's I don't know. I feel like that's a tighter fit. That's a lot harder to navigate your way into.
People put things in their butt for fun, but then there's people trying to pass a kidney stone. I think the kidney stone death is the worst version of this. Anyway, and on this topic, gonna keep moving on. You go ahead and give your thoughts, SPNanon or Arndress.
I just wanted to reply to your one, saying it might just be RNG, but I felt the way that she incorporated her world via lines was much more natural than, say, Y'shtola, who kind of just said stuff and it didn't seem to really fit with anything, whereas she kind of, the Wasp, related it to the situation a bit better, at least in the lines that I saw in my 2 test games.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think for me it's more just like, describe the situation you're in. So you're going to get various feedback on this. It's stylistic ultimately.
I think Wasp's writer has been around. I think he's done some work here and there, or like he's been on masquerade teams or something, or he's at least like been exposed to or like kind of floated ideas for projects. I don't know if he's ever like got any credits so far. I think this is the first major work he's done. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's a pretty decent start. I mean, she looks pretty spot on. Like you can definitely tell it's her and everything. She looks visually unique.
I like this. I like the art a lot. She's very cool. Like I think the art's very good. Like she's very distinct, which is nice.
Yeah, she does a good job of being like spunky and sassy, and you just kind of. I mean, they like posted a few clips of her, and you get that sense immediately, and it comes across in the game. That's not really my style of character, but I understand why that would be appealing. She's kind of like young and perky and like whatever. I'm just having fun. Corky posted the live action version of her. This is like specifically Wasp from like I think a 2000s cartoon of the Avengers. So this is like before the whole cinematic universe, I think. I understand why she talks about the people she knows and like her source material so much, because there's so much to draw from.
That's a good point.
In a universe like Marvel. But yeah, you do want to engage largely with the characters that are actually there with you. You don't want to just be making references the whole time. That's really all I have to say for now. I mean, I like where she's going. I feel like she hasn't seen too many updates recently, like in the last few weeks. I could be wrong on that, but I hope she's not fading away. Like the whole like shrinking down thing, that might be funny in the game, but honestly, that seems like some kind of, I don't know, that seems like material for some kinky epilogue shit.
Yeah, probably.
She could just like crawl around on your balls or whatever.
She was last updated 5 days ago.
All right, well then I'm full of shit.
Yeah, same. Sorry, dude. We'll get back to her.
Listen, if you're not targeting my characters, then it's hard for me to keep track.
If you don't target me, then you're dead to spnanon.
I mean, I'm just being honest here. Just being honest.
It's like X gonna give it to you, except spnanon is like, he's gonna initiate conversations. Your character exists, Maya will target them.
And my other girls too,
Yeah.
Just later. When I get to it.
Ryuko updates one.
Ooh.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right, nmasp. If you want to start talking about characters we've dropped, you're fucking dozen of them.
I know.
I was brave enough to list all the characters that I dropped.
What characters have I dropped? Okay, it's
fucking Gwen and Say and Coco and 9S and
I forgot about Coco.
Ochako.
Man, I forgot about Coco. Sorry, Cog. All right, so let's see. Who have I dropped? Okay, Marinette's in development.
Oh yeah, fucking Marinette. Not even back in the game.
I've been a little busy. Futaba. Let's see. Who's number 3? Gwen. Say. Ochako. 9S. Coco, still working on Natsuki.
Excuse me for dropping one
still
character.
Still working on Akko. Working on Sucrose. I feel like there's one more in there somewhere. Adrian, yeah, okay. Still working on Adrian. God, have I made that many characters? Jesus Christ. Anyway, so that's anyway, Wasp is coming along well. Just kind of needs some texture there. I think you're getting some conflicting opinions on this podcast, and that's kind of good because you can take what you need, leave what you don't. But it looks like we're gonna have a new dawn for Pokemon characters. Spnanon. But
yes, giant Pokemon fan that I know you are. Thank God we got you on this podcast.
Go for it.
Yeah, let's. Here we have yet another Pokemon main, like kind of blank slate main character who is not Hilda from Black and White. How does this keep happening? I don't know. We have Dawn from Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, newly relevant in the media sphere for the Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl remakes, and also Pokemon Legends Arceus games that are coming out. Considering she didn't even really get a redesign in the remakes, I think this design is going to stay pretty relevant. Yes, I posted one of her poses. Apparently, this is called Chad Flirt. So Dawn is a total Chad. Fun fact: Dawn's Japanese voice actress also voices Revy.
Wait, what? That's weird.
Yes. Revy targets that. It's like, you kind of sound like me when I was younger and wasn't a smoker. Dawn's Japanese voice actress also voices the chief engineer on Maya and Jura's show. Dawn is deeply intertwined with my girls, and Pokemon Diamond was like it wasn't my first Pokemon game, but it was probably the one I played the most as a kid. So, I definitely like Dawn. She's not Hilda, but she's cute. She's got a cute hat, cute mini skirt, nice token scarf, which I really don't think is going to help her in a blizzard. But she's from the cool, the remote Sinnoh region. She has, I think this is actually supposed to be like, I don't think this is supposed to be Dawn as like the protagonist. I think this is supposed to be Dawn as like, when you pick the boy, she's like the assistant to the professor, and she's like an NPC that talks. I think that's who she's supposed to be in SPNatI. Art by Horse Killer, as usual, who just makes like every other model in the game these days, and the game's better off for it, frankly. Here she is. It's Dawn. Arndress, what do you think?
And the writing was by It Wasn't My Fault.
Yes, another new writer.
Yeah. I was excited to see new writers, but I'm also so excited to see old writers too. Horse Killer does amazing work. I love the model, of course.
She's incredibly cute.
She is really, really good. I really like the way It Wasn't My Fault posed her, and I really like some of the poses too. I thought some of them I saw too many times, but they were great the first time. So I think all I want to see there is more goodness. As for her dialogue, I liked it. She was a little flirty and familiar with the player. It wasn't like they just met, and I enjoyed that. But her shyness was good too. And something I really enjoyed when I played her is I played her with the bedroom background, and she had lines specific to that background.
Oh.
And when you're going through a character to put them onto the main roster and you're kind of vetting them, sometimes you kind of spoil the surprise for yourself. So if another game mod does it and you get to play the character without having the surprise spoiled, I really enjoyed discovering that kind of things naturally. Mostly spoilers of that type are like images. You can't really put a character onto testing without seeing all of the images, so you can't really have a normal play experience in quite the same way. But for dialogue too, I like discovering that she had lines for her background without knowing it. It's a way to make your characters know where they actually are.
Imagine targeting backgrounds. Should probably do that.
Her background game was good. For that one background that I tried, I didn't actually look to see if she had other lines, but that was enough to make me happy.
Oh yeah, before we go any further, I should probably mention some added context for Dawn. This is actually not the first time Dawn has been in the game. Dawn was one of our very, very early characters. Dawn Classic was released November 11th, 2016. Here's what she looked like. You may notice something is missing.
Is it the hat?
This is stage 0, by the way. They didn't even fucking bother with the hat. They just like took one look at it. It's like, well, that's not a Kisuke default. Guess we can't put it in the game. Apparently, Soldier had it his way with her before she made it here. So she is without hat.
That's like only 2 months before Nagisa hit the main roster.
Is it? She
was like just at the start of 2017.
Oh, yeah. January 6th, 2017. How about that?
I can't say the model was much better, but I made sure. That's another thing I didn't mention in my intro. I really pioneered the idea of counting unique lines. I even had a special Python script that you could run to count how many unique lines your character had before but this is before the character editor even exists, or the game would count for you.
And you guys really just like banging rocks together in 2016, weren't you?
It was interesting.
I really wanted everyone to know what the records were before I came in and just shouted them all. Because 666 lines, that was like head and shoulders above everything else back then. There was no excuse to write how few lines Dawn Classic had.
There were, as late as like 2018, there were some characters on main roster that had like under 200 lines.
So, nmasp, what did you think of Dawn?
I think the art, like everyone says, is very cute. I have rather strong negative opinions about Pokemon characters in general, just because I think they lack substance.
She's so cute.
I mean, she is, and that's the thing, is like, I think the writing is good, but it's kind of like because the character has very little personality, anything you do is going to be wrong. And I don't think that sets you up for success. Like with an OC, you can at least say, well, I made this, so I'm right. Whereas with the Pokemon characters, it's like, well, Dawn doesn't do these things. It's like, well, how do you know? And it's like, well, for these reasons. It's like, okay. And then someone else will be like, well, Dawn does do these things. Why? For these reasons. And it just doesn't. The case in point is like, I'm being like very like nitpicky here, which is not what I want to do. I think Dawn is good. I like her. I just think that it's like, I would like to see something unique in the context of the Pokemon characters with this one. Because if you have a Fire Emblem character, like, regardless of if they introduce their source, there's some degree of tone and uniqueness as far as like what's pre-built. I'd love to see Dawn be the best version of herself, but I fear the best version of herself is like very, I don't know. It's like you have to extrapolate from the things that are in here, and I'm trying not to be too negative. I do really like the character. I just want to see like her go in a direction that makes sense and feels robust enough to play it on her own. Like if I don't care about Pokemon, and I don't, I should still be able to play this character and enjoy her on her own merits, and I just don't quite get that yet. But I'm obviously pre-biased against the Pokemon characters. I think the art's good. I think the personality is nice. So it's, you know, I do hope that there's going to be some cool stuff here. I just don't see it quite yet.
I do think Dawn still suffers at the moment from the problem that May and Rosa do, which is, you know, it's kind of hard to talk about Pokemon when nobody it like defines your whole life and nobody else at the table knows what the fuck they are.
Right.
So she kind of falls into like generic nice girl syndrome a lot because it's hard to talk about the one thing that makes her unique.
Having written about that, I can speak a little bit about my experience with May.
Sure.
So I joined the May Rework Masquerade team to make the numbers work and to provide support for the team, but I'd never played May's game. I'd never seen any episodes. I did watch episodes to help write her, and I watched about 35 episodes, I think, in all. And the thing I came to realize is Pokemon dialogue is just not good. The games, the anime, the actual, if you read the words, they don't live up to the standard that we want in SPNatI. So it's really hard you can adapt the mannerisms and the slang and the lingo, and would they use contractions or would they not use contractions? But what they actually have to say is normally so basic and so simple for children that it just doesn't really translate into something interesting to read. And I really struggled to find things to adapt. Not that I wanted to take whole quotes out. And yes, the world is very rich and all kinds of weird things to talk about, and how would those things really go in our world?
But they're always talking about Pokemon is the problem.
Well, that is true too, but even how it's just very, very, very simple dialogue, and there's nothing quotable. I would watch an episode, there's nothing quotable at all. There's two episodes that I watched especially for May's outfit. It was the summer outfit that is the more the exotic one. And I watched the two episodes where the characters all wore their special outfits, and not one character at any time said any sentence that was related to what they were wearing at all. None of this, I like what you're wearing, what is it, this is where I bought it. Just like as though they had recorded the dialogue and decided to add that outfits later. It was very challenging to assist with May in that way because, of course, people want her to have something interesting to say, just like they want Dawn to have something interesting to say, but the source material, insofar as what they actually say, provides very little.
The thing with the anime is that you might get the impression from something like, I don't know, Sailor Moon or Dragon Ball that it's like some kind of shonen anime where there's like a story and character arcs. There really isn't. It's very much a commercial. It's very much a vehicle to show Pokemon acting cute, which it does a very good job of. Like, I think, like if you watch the anime, the Pokemon are very cute, and it's nice to see them in a context other than just like battling on a flat screen. But you know, it doesn't do a whole lot with the human characters. I think we can all agree there.
Yeah, to what nmasp was saying, and you too, like the substance isn't there because that's not really what it's there for.
I mean, at this point, if you just like the design and you want a cute girl, just make some shit up. Don't go too overboard with it. You know, try to give it some basis in the games or the anime or whatever, just, some kind of fact about the setting, but just like, to have something. Something is better than nothing.
Life pro tip. If you want to do an OC, do it as a Pokemon character too. No one will know.
Follow in Mysterious D's footsteps.
Oh God, Mysterious D.
No, never do that. Only villains do that. Never ever take the moon route, all right? You don't need to go that far. Do not just make them a vehicle for your fetish.
Oh, also one other I have one last comment if we're ready to go from this, or are you guys still invested in this conversation?
I'm still talking.
Okay, go for it.
You're always ready to move on by the time that
I am. Well,
it's my turn.
I'm just keeping us paced. I remember the Sonic. I remember the 5-hour Sonic cast of yore, and I don't want to revisit it.
Only 2 hours of that were Sonic.
Oh God, I want to fucking die. Anyway, so
gotta go fast.
no.
I do think Dawn is like a quality ad, especially if you can really nail down some appealing writing. Because people love the character. I really like Hilda from Black and White, obviously, but in terms of mainstream popularity, Dawn has probably been one of the most successful they've had. Game Freak really hit it out of the park with this. I think she's pretty popular character in the anime and just in promotional stuff in general. Probably people really like her design, probably because that skirt is so short. But I definitely think it's worth getting this character right. But in order to avoid that generic nice girl syndrome, I think at some point you are just going to have to make some shit up. What is her sexuality? I don't know. She does live in a pretty cold area. She wants to share some body heat. Start running with that. I don't know. See where it takes you. Just do something,
I think of all of the characters that I went over specifically for the podcast, Dawn is the one that could do with the most playtesting. Not because what she has is bad, but I think for her author to play her again and again and again and again and see which lines he or she gets sick of, and then add new variation to those cases. Because some of the lines have that problem of being so unique and so notable that if it happens twice in a game, you're like, oh, this is a good line. And then the second time, this line again. And then the third time, I've seen this one.
I do really like her art. I like that her poses are pretty expressive. Some of them are a bit of a miss for me. That's just kind of getting used to Kisuke and what looks good. But the model is obviously a very strong foundation. One thing I will say, I say this every time any character has any kind of asymmetrical feature, but that little dangly part on the back of her hat, that needs to shift around with her head. That needs to shift angles based on that way her head is facing. I will say this every time. Look at this GIF I posted. See how it changes. It's just like Goku's hair. It distracts me. I notice it every time now. Once Maya started doing it, you gotta shift it around. Am I just talking nonsense here?
The GIF is illuminating that Dawn does actually do it, but had you not mentioned it, I never would have thought of it.
Oh, as soon as I looked at these poses back to back, I noticed it immediately. I was like, her little hat thing is not moving around. It bothers me. It should definitely be going side to side. I think people underestimate how much that little detail adds, because it's so common in drawing 2D characters that you don't even think about it. But imagine Goku's hair not flipping around with his head, and you will immediately be like, oh, this is wrong. This is so wrong. Anyway, that's me. I really hope this character is explored further because people really like her. People really like her design. She'd bring a lot of players in. For better or for worse, people really like the blank slate Pokemon protagonists.
Yeah, I liked everything I saw. I just would like more of it, please.
Yeah. And just in general, people especially like Dawn. And she's got the advertisements. Her game remakes are coming out. How much they're actually changing, who knows? But she's there. People want to see her. She will get new fan art.
Oh, that reminds me. Nagisa is in a new anime next season.
What?
Yeah.
Clannad 2? Clannad Harder?
Wait, what? Really?
No, the Clannad 2 is Clannad After Story. It's called Kaginado, and it's all key visual novel properties, kind of I think it's like some chibi thing, but that'll be interesting because I've watched the anime based on most of those, except for rewrites, so I'll enjoy it.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I love chibi stuff.
Can you have a screen cap of that?
I'll find one.
Is it like Isekai Quartet?
Kaginato. And it's got Nagisa like on the main image, so that's promising.
Yeah. It's like Isekai Quartet. Very cute.
Oh, that is cute. I mean, Nagisa's always cute, but all right. So far we have talked about 3 projects that I'd say are at least in varying ways pretty strong efforts. I mean, can we agree with that? I mean, they have problems, but overall, I'd say they're pretty. Like I'd say they're fairly good characters.
Yeah.
Now we're getting into stuff that it's in a bit of a rougher state, for better or for worse, which might give us more to talk about. But as fair warning, if you want to go test them yourselves. First off, we have who I hope will probably gain some traction on SPNatI's threads on 4chan's adult cartoons board because people fucking love She-Ra. It's Adora, who is, I don't know, I know nothing about She-Ra. Apparently she turns Super Saiyan into She-Ra.
She's adorable.
She turns into He-Man, but with a vagina.
Yeah, that's a good description of it, to be honest. There's some more subtlety than that, but not intrinsically wrong.
She also turns into She-Ra at one point during SPNatI itself. So you got a couple times. She seems to go back and forth weirdly. So she's like, whether you want the cute awkward girl who's a little unsure of herself, or the big muscle Amazon girl who's also unsure of herself. Here you have both. Hopefully one of you can elaborate more on the source material so I don't look like a complete unprepared fool.
Yeah, I've watched the Netflix She-Ra. I really liked it. I thought it was really good. Arndress, have you any context here besides SPNatI?
No, I know what it is, but I've never watched it.
Got it.
Apparently, there's been this character Catra who's been in the works for quite a while now. Carble's been working on her, but Adora just came out of nowhere, sniped the first franchise rep. I guess it makes sense. She is the main character.
I think it's gonna be really hard to write these characters at the same time.
How come?
So long story short, the 2 of them have a very complicated relationship.
Complicated lesbian relationship?
I mean, they have a complicated friendship and other things. It's figure it out.
You lost me. How am I supposed to watch 5 seasons or whatever and they don't make out at the end?
Well, I don't know. Don't be. It's a little presumptive. So, well, I mean, you can watch Miraculous Ladybug and anyway. So I'm here for it. But long story short, I really liked the series. I think the Adora as presented has some good bones to it. I do think what I would like to see is a more, I guess, systematic way of approaching how she transforms or doesn't transform. I don't think the Pinkamena method is quite what you want here, but I do think something more like how Streaming Chan. So Streaming Chan has this background system of markers that change dynamically over the course of the game. I think Adora would work better if she has certain conditions she needs to fulfill to transform to She-Ra and has 2 sets of dialogue based on which mode she's in. That's obviously quite a lot of work, especially because you're going to run into the problem of once she transforms, you need to add conditions to keep her transformed. But I think otherwise it becomes very challenging. I don't know. I think there's a lot of first writer stuff going on here. I think there's ways to improve it and just give it polish, but I think this is something that no one's first effort is really concrete, and I think this is a reasonably complex character in terms of both characterization and mechanics. You need to put that on display. So I think that's just something that you got to sit down and go to the drawing board with an experienced developer to just chart you through what you want to get out of it, especially because when and if Catra is released, you gotta do the diligence there for whatever is going to be happening. I don't think you need to go the full duration of Jura and Maya or Marinette and Adrian, but I do think there's some concrete level thoughtfulness that has to go into it, and you need to be prepared for that. So this character is a lot of work, and I think the art, I think the base art is good. I think the posing is definitely new in the sense of review Thursday's guide, get some support here because I think there's just some basic polish that could be really helpful. I'm not going to say that I don't like the character because I don't think that's right, but I do want to see her in a better state than she is right now, especially just because full disclosure, like I really like Catra. Like Catra's my favorite character in that whole series. I really like her character arc, and I think Adora coming first means Adora needs to stand on her own, like really solidly before Catra arrives, or it's gonna be a lot of problem for both writers. So TLDR, keep working at it, keep polishing it. Consider consulting with another developer, someone who's done something complex like this, in order to kind of have her live up to the promise. Because I think there's a lot of things that need to go right for her to stand on her own. But I do think Adora as a character is a good fit for SPNatI, just because she's like weirdly sheltered. So she's sheltered without being like, ooh woo, what are we doing on the bed, senpai, kind of thing. So I think there's a lot of content you can explore there. I think getting introduced to characters from other worlds is a big selling point for why Adora is interesting in this game, especially because like there are ways in canon for her to go to other worlds. So without exploring that too deeply, I think there's something to be said about like figuring out where in the timeline she is, and also then kind of continuing to develop from there. So I think that the base work is there. I think it's about kind of coming up with a plan and sticking to it to really bring her into a really, really strong position. I'd say once she hits about like 1,400 revised lines, which is a lot, I think you'd be in really, really good standing, assuming you did some good backbone development. Anyway, that's what I got for that. I don't think it's bad. I just think that there's work here that needs to be really thoughtfully considered.
I don't really have any context for the character or the characterization because I'm completely unfamiliar with the source. I didn't really learn a lot about the character while I was playing it, but my main angle here is the way the stripping sequence works doesn't really work with the game right now, and I feel like didn't really consider how it would play with other characters. If you think of SPNatI as like a game where it's fill in the blanks in this sentence with whatever crazy noun or verb or adjective you have to use a noun or verb or adjective in the right spot. And if you don't, it creates a situation where everyone else has to accommodate that. And so everyone else has to accommodate the unusual strip sequence because the transformations are not just, oh, I have a different body, but I did take off a layer. It's working in the end there quite unusually. And I feel like if that's not addressed, then we might have a character forever that doesn't really quite work right. And the fewer broken characters we have, the better. So that's really what I'm looking at. I did really enjoy the art. I thought it's EC and underscore. I know that they both had quite a contribution to it, and I would like to see more from the character. But my main concern is how it's working right now, from a technical standpoint.
I will agree. I struggled to introduce her in the first place because just from this project alone, I didn't learn a whole lot about her. She seemed a little bit like a generic nice girl, at least when like in her Adora stages, and it's not really like that clear like what makes her transform, or like what her mentality is behind it. And I saw a lot of confusion in like the character channel as well. Okay, first off, why in different poses does she have? I posted in here. Does she have like completely different hair and like a different face even when she's transformed? I assume it's because she's like holding her big powerful sword, which is not a euphemism, and like she's glowing and turning Super Saiyan or whatever. But like her whole face shape is different. When she's not holding her sword, she's kind of got like a longer man face. It's weird. I don't get it. Like look at her head. Her head is like shorter when she's holding the sword. I think this art is interesting, but it could definitely use a few more passes for some consistency and continuity.
Is it just two different models, perhaps?
I think it is. I think it is like completely like two different models. Like even when transformed, this character as a whole feels a little scattershot at the moment with stuff like that. It feels like they weren't really designed with a really clear plan in mind. So, when does she transform? What state of mind is she in? What does she look like when transformed in all poses? I think it was just kind of all over the place. And I think we're going to see this a little bit later, but this is an example of a project where I think there just wasn't a whole lot of forethought.
Yeah. that's really my biggest like criticism is like I think the work here is apparent, but there's no structure. There's no structure to it.
Yeah, it's not like she doesn't have any effort put in, but it feels like every idea that they had for her for like a pose or what she should look like or what she should say was kind of thrown in without thinking about like how it fits or where, and without any kind of like editing process. You know, like whenever they had an idea, they just kind of threw it in immediately without thinking about it. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And what you get is just like this weird mishmash of ideas that doesn't really form a cohesive character that lets you get like a clear sense of who she is. It's just like different little scattered bits and pieces of the character. That said, I think she would fill a good niche. Her show is obviously very popular. And, you know, for all the memes you hear about, like big buff, 8-foot tall Amazon girl that you can lick her abs as the sweat pulls up in the creases. There's plenty to work with. You just, you know, you need to go down that road. But you need a strong foundation for that.
With the previous characters we talked about, Ishtola and Wasp and Dawn, I think I would be ready to sponsor any of them. Not that they're like perfect right now, but like here's the list of flaws to work on. But yes, if you're not having gone for sponsorship already, please do it today because then you can start that journey. I feel like Adora is the first character where I feel like a bit more of like the basics have to be looked at and solidified first.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I did actually have one other point that I didn't get to, which was she was very thirsty for all of the other women on the table, which is maybe to her character. I'm not sure. I feel like
It's
oh, that's right. I think she's written as like a very intense lesbian, I guess you could say.
I wasn't sure how in character that was, but given what little I know about the show, I felt like maybe it was a little bit overt.
I think it's kind of a fandom thing because like all the major characters are girls, and you know, so it's LGBT inclusive.
It's definitely a bit much. I'm a big fan of saying like, okay, you need to like up this quotient in context of this game, but yeah, I'd say it's a little over. Like you don't really get the sense of that until very late in the series.
I know there's definitely a delicate balance to be struck, but I felt like I was playing as a male player, and she didn't really care that I was there a little bit. Or maybe this is a bit too much, but I don't really need to be catered to that much. I understand that the characterization is important, but this is something I felt about with Yuno too, the Yuno trio, which I did really like as a character, but they didn't really care about me as a player. Not even like I don't know exactly what the right balance is too, because I've said before that I feel like the character should be player sexual. And I know there's degrees of that, and that's not always appropriate, and it may not be at all appropriate for Adora, but I wanted her to engage with me, the player, more, even if it wasn't that she wanted me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Look, listen, it's fine to have a lesbian. I mean, I'm all for girls making out. If you want to add in Katra and she can talk about how she really wants to bury herself in that pussy, I mean, I'm all for that. You know, that's good dirty talk. Obviously, there's a lot of girls for her to talk to. Even that was kind of clumsily done, though. I think she had like one line that everybody memed on that was just like, girls, wow. Like that was the whole line.
Oh my god.
Like she was discovering right then and there, like a switch flipped in her brain, like, oh, I really want to munch some carpet. Yeah, and then she had a line like when men were stripping that is like, I am drier than the Saharan wastelands or whatever. They're just like, you know, you don't have to be player sexual, but you don't have to be like a bitch about it. That's a pretty harmful stereotype. Like it's okay for a character to be a lesbian and for her not to hate men. You know, like making every lesbian some kind of, you know, man-hating feminist, you know, shaven head, cis scum type is just reinforcing the stereotype that they're just disgruntled straight girls, which is only doing a disservice to that LGBT community you claim to be supporting.
That was a problem with the very, very early character, Tina. She was written as a lesbian, and she just was disgusted by men. And so if you were a man who thought, oh, like, Tina's my favorite dead or alive character, I can't wait to see, like, what this game's like, she was just, like, berating you all game. And then it's not a fun experience for the audience. If she was written, for example, to be very competitive with you and she really cared that she beat you, but in like a playful way, that would at least make me feel like I was not just dead weight on the table as far as she was concerned.
Yeah.
And to a lesser extent, I felt like Adora could improve in that way, looking at what the best angle is for her.
Yeah, like, even if you're not super into guys or whatever, you don't have to, like, bitch about them stripping. You could still, like, in a platonic sort of way, be interested. Because, maybe she doesn't see men naked very often. So she could at least, on some level, be interested in your penis or talk about your penis. That would go a long way to making the character sexually interesting, at least in a small, or like asking questions or just kind of like wanting a better look at it. Even if it's for platonic reasons, at least it's still a girl talking about your dick in a non-negative way, which, I mean, really, do most of the people playing this game require much more than that to get off? All we want is some affection. I don't think a lot of players are really asking for a lot here. Just don't be outright disgusted. I believe that covers all of the new online testing additions.
One more topic.
We did have one very short-lived character who was taken off for, unfortunately, some rule violating reasons, but we can briefly mention her. It was a character that was long in the making, Rogue from X-Men. So as maybe the mods can explain in a more polite manner why exactly she was removed so quickly.
I have some personal info or like a personal take on this where that was a little bit disappointing. But Arndress, I'll let you take this one because you're the official mod and the alpha and omega as we described previously.
I consider you an official mod too, even if you don't.
No, I don't want it. I'm abandoning my responsibilities at the door. I'm pulling a Goku.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure where to start. I want to start with, I like Rogue. I think the effort that was put in is extremely obvious.
She was worked on for like 2 years, so yeah. Unfortunately, I think she kind of feels like
uncovering like a photograph from like years ago that you didn't know was taken of you.
She feels like a character that was started 2 years ago. She feels like a character from 2-3 years ago.
And I think that's okay. I think that Rogue as she is has a lot of potential audience appeal. I mean, if you look at her, like I read comics with Rogue in them in the 90s, and I can like recognize a familiarity there. And I think that's fine to try to capture that look. The person or nymph girl who did the art went to a lot of effort. Obviously, they did all those kinds of custom poses. I want to believe that the way that they made Rogue look was very deliberate. I think the reason she got removed ultimately were very minor. There was things that people pointed out that they weren't big fans of, but just because a line isn't popular with developers does not necessarily mean it's rule breaking. I think to get her back onto test is not so much of an adjustment that she would need to make if Nymph Girl is willing to press on after the initial wave of uncomfortable feedback. I think that's the real lesson here, is more of a discussion on how we give feedback. And by we, I mean some people who came out of the gate with some particularly strong negative impressions and may have scared away Nymph Girl.
Well, people had strong reactions because, I mean, she was taken off not because she was bad, it was because she had lines regarding or referencing stuff that we don't typically allow anymore, such as, pedophilia and bestiality. She was usually like joking in most of them, but there were a lot of like
it happened a
implications
lot.
That like characters in her source material were like grooming children.
Yeah,
which is very much the stuff of like shallow porn parody. It's like, why would you do that? This is like if you've ever played Uhura, it's the same kind of thing where like it's the line between porn parody and porn appearance is the implication that everyone in their universe is just obsessed with sex all the time and constantly fucking each other. It's okay to be horny. It's not okay to make them all sex criminals.
There's not only no rule against that, but I think it has the potential to be quite a lot more popular than some people would like.
I kind of think that like I'm somewhere in the middle on this, where it's like I think that
I'm sure people like Moon, people like Samus.
people are allowed to be wrong. People are allowed to be wrong. People are allowed. It's like people are allowed to be kind of bad and wrong about certain things. Like that's not the issue. It's more like I think the reason that she got taken off were very real reasons. I don't think it's going to take a dramatic amount of effort to correct for those, but they are things that are like, yeah, we can't, like, you can't do this. This is not okay.
I mean, I feel like I can make those corrections and have her up in the next 20 minutes if it were my character.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you could, right? I think, like, I'm kind of with you on that.
She had a lot of lines like that. It might take a day.
Well, lines that will be unpopular is no problem. Like if you want to imply the Professor X is a perv, that's not like a rule-breaking line. People will report if they do like it or if they don't like it. For me, it makes me think of the Patrick Stewart bit where he's trying to pitch a script where everyone's clothes fall off, and I think, yeah, that's pretty funny.
I think for me, it was like, it's kind of uncomfortable or very disappointing when you open a character that has like very clearly had a lot of effort to make some rather pointed commentary on like Natsuki, and it's like I don't take that kind of thing personally, and I can understand the perspective. I'm just very much like, why do you have this bone to pick? Like it just feels very hostile.
Yeah, it feels like an attack on the creator for like making the character.
Yeah, not in a way that's like, oh well, my character doesn't like your character. It's just very much like, okay. It's like you're telling a joke, but not really. And I think for me, it was just like, there's a lot of stuff like that in Rogue that I saw. So I was a little bit like, is this, are you trying to be clever? Like, what's the purpose here? Like, let's talk. Are you okay? And I think, like, to your point, Arndress, like, yeah, I mean, the things that we took her off were legitimate things. Those can be corrected. But at the same time, it's like, well, does the person want to make that? And, just as general commentary, it's like people are allowed to like things that we might find offensive. So it's okay. Like if it's not non-consent and it's not like people that are like explicitly underage or literally or de facto underage, like it's okay. This obviously subject to change when someone comes out with like their scat OC, their scat character or whatever, but
Can we make that the next thing that's pre-banned, like the first OCs?
No.
Please. Because
no.
I just don't want someone to have to like do something so bad that we make a rule out after the fact.
What are we trying to ban here?
Scat porn.
Oh.
I mean, because it's like, here's the thing: it's like I will be the first person to say like that's not for me. I do not want that. No, I do not. And if it were my game entirely, I would just say no.
I mean, yeah, everyone would probably leave if a character started just like shitting themselves on the floor.
Probably.
People would also leave if Amy started firing an assault rifle, bouncing bullets, or if Shara just constantly talking about how she intends to murder everyone.
Yeah, but anyway, the point being is like I'm sympathetic, and if it were me, I would do that. But I think like we can't get into the politics of policing people's interests because it's just not worth that kind of effort. But I do think that it's like, well, do something that people don't like, and you'll find out. It's people are not averse to feedback.
Aye.
From my point of view, there's that saying, a delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever bad. I feel like when we give that first feedback to a character, we have to keep that in mind. It's like a nurtured character is eventually good, but an abandoned character is abandoned forever.
Look at Ryuji,
Like a character that starts off on a bad start. Like, for example, I know they're very different situations, but Adora could one day be one of the game's best characters, or in the top 50%, or on the third row of the resort. Who can say? But if development stopped now, that will never happen. Adora will be in the incomplete section forever. And I don't want that to happen. No one wants that to happen. So it's important that the feedback's given constructively, and like dunking on them in SPNatI screenshots for an hour is not what I would call constructive or helpful for someone who's clearly aware of and following the community's reaction.
I thought you were going to take that in another direction because I would have. A delayed game is eventually good, and a rush game is forever bad. But on the flip side, if you delay a game so long that you don't really engage with the modern standards of game development, then you get Duke Nukem Forever.
I was about to say that. You motherfucker.
Yeah, right? This character has been in development since like 2018, and she feels like she hasn't really taken in anything from the years in between. She has a lot of like custom poses, but it's on a very defaulty looking model with like kind of shoddy assets that are like custom, but they're not like shaded particularly well. Like the line art's kind of all over the place because that's kind of what it looked like in 2018 for a lot of characters. There are a lot of like weird conflicting ideas going on here. Again, it's another example of like it just seems like every idea that they had was just thrown in without any kind of editing process. They did it all by themselves, so there was no one there to tell them no, or this is a bad idea. She has like Deadpool show up, and she changes into like different comic book versions of Rogue halfway through with like a completely different clothes, and she like gains layers, and she like shaves as one of her stripping stages, and it's like, what are you doing? This is all over the place. Like, talk about just overthinking it. Like, just make Rogue and have her strip and masturbate. That's all you need. In 2018, there was this mindset that every character needed to be like super unique and have a gimmick. And Rogue has all the gimmicks, and you just didn't need any of them. And who wants to go back and change that after the fact, after you've spent like 2 years on it and like poured your heart and soul into it? But it's the difference between like, Shenmue came out and it was super revolutionary and people thought it was cool. And then 20 years later, Shenmue 3 comes out and it still feels like a Dreamcast game because they didn't learn from everything that came out in between. Like Yakuza, that took that formula and expanded upon it and refined it. So it just feels super dated. And that's kind of the situation here.
I feel like the aesthetic seems to me to be deliberate. I don't think it's necessarily a dated style. As for the timeline shenanigans, I think the way Rogue is now, and probably if it can be done in a respectful way, if she's not developed anymore, I think she'll fit in really well as like an April Fool's Day character, like a well-made April Fool's Day character, because she does all this crazy stuff. And I think people should see that.
I agree with that. That's a good perspective.
Yeah, honestly.
That's a good perspective. I mean, I think there's like a way to make a serious character out of her, but like you could save this version, just be like, it was all a joke, and refine from here.
It's the room of SPNatI. You just back off, say, oh yeah, I was told it was a joke. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, definitely.
Because she's clearly made to be a funny character. I think the Deadpool stuff, like most of the Deadpool stuff, like worked. I laughed out loud several times at some of those lines. Yeah, I could see it working for that.
Yeah, like she feels a lot like Uhura, which other people pointed out, but it's just this character that like very porn parody heavy. She's constantly talking about sex and making jokes about sex. And she has all these like custom poses that clearly they put a ton of effort into, but it's just in service of a very shallow porn parody. And I think the difference there is that, yeah, you can joke, you can muse about how, wouldn't it be funny if Professor X was grooming all these kids because he's a perv? But to make the assertion that, yeah, he totally is, and just go with that, and just have her talk all the time, it's like, yeah, he clearly is. I have all this evidence of him being a perv, like she's trying to cancel him or something. It's just like, why would you do that to this character? Like, what did Professor X do to you? Why does he deserve this? This is bald discrimination.
SPNanon is triggered due to his close proximity to the issue at hand.
This is a hate crime against the bald community.
Why are you being such a sensitive snowflake, SPNanon? That's what I want to know. So I think like we've said what we need to say. Any kind of closing remarks on this?
Rouge the Bat is coming soon. Please don't get their names confused.
Oh yeah, that's going to be a pain in the ass. Good luck, everyone.
You're all going to learn the difference between Rouge and Rogue.
I always have. It's not really that hard to spell, people.
I'll just say, if she's still offline at the time that you're hearing this podcast, just try to give her a try. Don't expect to like everything, but I think it's just so much more valuable to try a character with your own impressions than just relying on what other people thought, because we don't all think the same.
All right. So finishing off testing, we have some returning characters. I mean, Nagisa made her return pretty recently. Takatoshi Hijiyama got a model update. Ayano Aishi from Yandere Simulator, who was a somewhat abandoned rework project fitting for Yandere Simulator. She's back, and she's up for sponsorship. We can very briefly talk about her. Anything you want to say?
So this was a rework Masquerade character. Writers Napsu and Beta 69, and artist Ninja Monkey and Beta 69. I want to lead with, I'm sorry, Ninja Monkey, that this was the art project that you got, because you did ask for more of a challenge and we gave you a schoolgirl. But I think she turned out really well. So difficult to balance those teams like you would not imagine.
It was a huge pain in the ass. Like, I'm sorry, everyone who was not incredibly thrilled. I think the work products we got out of it were really strong, but it was like, it was less swingy than the first Masquerade, but it's definitely, there's no perfect answer to all of life's problems.
I think we gave more chances to success, but sorry to derail.
Go ahead, sorry, yeah.
I think the characterization of Ayano is just, she has so much more life to her now. I really feel like there's a depth. I feel like paying attention to what she's saying and thinking is more rewarding. Obviously more than the Ayano classic, which it was very limited, but just even in comparison with other characters. And I like how bitchy she is to other characters, how she'll insinuate that they have different like mental problems or weight problems, or there's rumors being spread about them. She'll just kind of like plant those seeds of doubt. I think she does that really well.
Oh yeah, perfect representation of like some creepy rumor starting, gossiping high school bitch.
She's such a bitch. Like, oh my god.
It concerns me a little bit how well Napsu can write this character. How exactly did she behave in school?
I mean, you'd have to ask her about that, but yeah, like I really like the new Ayano.
Maybe I would if she came on the podcast.
Yeah, I'll go ask her. Just be like, hey, you want to hop on for the last 10 minutes?
What classmates did you bully in high school?
I think with Ayano, like to Arndress' point, like, yeah, Ayano was such a bitch. She's such a bitch, but she's like she's never like overtly hostile. Like, at least in so far as I remember playing her, like the original version was just like kill, murder, kill, murder, kill, murder, kill, murder the whole time. And like wasn't even subtle about it. I think the new one is like a little bit like, oh,
my least favorite kind of character.
And you have a knife to pick with people. But yeah, so there's like a lot of interesting things that are going on with the character. Like there's like a targeting system based on like people's tags or something like that. I don't know. It's interesting to see her play, and she has like a lot to say that's just like very mean, but it's like underhanded. It's never just like explicitly like, yeah, you're such a little stupid person. It's always just like, yeah, you have trouble tying your socks, you should get some help for that. Whatever. Tying your shoes. Clearly I'm one of those special people too.
Something that was taken away from Ayano Classic is that she's not really thirsty for the player anymore. Before, she would like very openly consider the player her senpai, and so that's all she was interested in. She was very player focused, and I think I understand it was a deliberate decision not to go in that direction, but I think that direction is the crowd pleasing direction. To me, it's kind of like if Bowsette is, with her new author, reformed to not be like a meme machine. Like, what really is the goal of the character? And when someone selects the character, what are they after? I think that Ayano, as she is very well done and deliberately done at that. I think had she been more player focused in expanding on how her original was, that would make her popular. I think if Napsu would like to make the top row of the roster, and I think she would, I think her ticket to slot 1, and I don't mean row 1, but slot 1, would be like a sexualized Samus rework. And I don't mean a Samus rework where she's in character, but
oh yeah,
just going for it, because that is that is the way to do it, because that's what people would they want a sexual experience.
Yeah, I feel like
Arndress, no great art was ever created by giving the people what they want. They just want the same shit they got last time.
I'm not saying it would be great art.
You need
I mean, I think like if
you need to give something people they didn't know that they wanted.
like as far as Ayano goes, like specifically, I think the new direction is basically like kind of the like this is just what Napsu does when she writes characters, and probably Beta too. It's like it's all very trolly, and I think the idea of it being like, oh, you're gonna get a yandere character, but she's not yandere for you, is probably the point. I guess it's not user friendly, but it's sort of like, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't make every project an art piece and expect to like have people like it. So I don't know. I think to your point, like Zontan is probably the Napsu rework character that's just like that's just like cash money, easy.
I think that's possible, but I think Zontan's not as enduringly relevant now to all audiences. I think Samus in Smash is just...
Zone barely makes anything anymore, although that fucking Anka Flash was awesome.
Look at how Samus still does in different polls, how she's still relevant in like Smash games, and she's got a new game coming out, and she gets fan art continually. I think there's money to be made there.
I have a proposal. How about Samus becomes a Maya alt skin?
If you wanted to be reclaim slot 1, she'll have to be the default skin, and Maya will be the alt.
Damn it. We'll go 50-50 on the proceeds here.
So anyway, Ayano.
She's very good. But I don't for as far as like horny player sexual, cardboard cutouts, I don't know. The reason I thought SPNatI was interesting in the first place is because it wasn't written like every other porn game ever. So to play that up is just, I don't know, it feels like a waste.
Yeah, and I think it is even exhausting if all 4 characters on the table
Thirst
are just into you for no reason. It doesn't make any sense, and it's not that satisfying. I just mean this character specifically, her original incarnation already had that angle. I guess I would have predicted more success for the character, but that said, this entirely untested quality. There's been no resorts. There's been, I mean, I don't know what the play stats are like, but it'll be interesting to see how she fares, and I want her to do as well as possible, because I think what she did is so good to play with and really has a great dynamic with every character through her different filters.
Yeah, she's super good. Go sponsor her.
she only has like 2 right now at the time of this cast, so it's surprising. I guess like no one's played with her forever, so.
Yeah, it's tough to drum up attention and excitement for a character that isn't all that different.
Yeah,
as she was months ago. That's why you got to keep the ball rolling. You can't have a big hiatus. Yandere dev.
Oh yeah, I'd like to add to this. This is not an officially endorsed character.
not anymore.
It is.
not anymore. Like it's a fan project.
If it was not asked for, it was not. It did not receive Yandere dev's blessing.
That's Ayano. That's the testing table characters.
Oh, we made it in 2 hours. Nice work.
Yeah, just barely. So let's have a bit of a lightning round here at the end.
Oh yeah, my favorite.
We have a big backlog of main roster releases because we were stuck in testing doldrums for a very long time and couldn't catch up to main roster releases to actually cover them in the last few episodes. So we can briefly talk about them. I'll keep my comments pretty brief because, I've already gotten a chance to talk about all of them because I'm on every episode. But, you two can briefly give your thoughts. We'll try to move pretty quickly through this because, really...
Yeah.
They're mostly finished projects at this point, so you can just kind of briefly say what you like, what you didn't like, what you want to see from them. So let's get started with Sayori from Doki Doki Literature Club. I've got a model update, which kind of feels like a long way away now, or a long time ago, because it kind of was. It's a couple months ago. So this was by Thursdays, who is the artist for many characters. So very briefly, what do you think?
I think her new poses are very adorable, but I thought especially paired with some of her dialogue. I noticed that I played her on a table with none of the other DDLC girls, and I noticed she was mentioning them a lot, And at first I saw that as a flaw, like she was leaning too heavily on that. And then I came to question all of her dialogue because I thought there's like a certain insecurity and uncertainness that's kind of not just in the way her dialogue's delivered, but what she talks about. And when I came to that realization, I thought, this is either geniusly clever or the perfect coincidence. Whichever it was, I thought it really, really worked well for me.
As for me, it's someone who's written, Natsuki. I think Sayori's a character that I find she is easily my least favorite of the characters in that visual novel. But I think the biggest thing is like it feels like her dialogue has a way to go with respect to the art. The art update is just phenomenal. Like it makes her so much more appealing than even her canon art, which is great. I think like this is the thing that it's like if I had time to do this I probably would, but I don't and I'm not going to. Is like Sayori needs to not obsess over the player, but she needs to have like a lot of lines that are like very case and context specific to the player because she's supposed to be your like childhood best friend. And that would make her like infinitely more interesting. If, she's like, oh, you picked this type of people, or like meta, but like only like in character observations, and just being like, it's really weird that like everyone here is like this. Oh, is that something that player is into or whatever, right? Like does that make sense? Like I think there's just work to be done as far as like targeting tags and the player tags in particular.
I could see some heavy lifting like that could be done in the opponent selected case. You can put filters and even specific targets on an opponent selected line, and Sayori currently has no opponent selected lines. If you select her and then select someone else, she has nothing to add at that time.
I don't think I'd really do either, other than responses.
I think like you could. I think I'm more talking about like targeting the player and like the player's tags. It's like observational stuff around the team is like around the sorry for lack of a better term, the team is good. I think the thing I'm more looking for here would be the idea of like what the player who goes in and like creates player tags or chooses certain clothing articles is something that feels like a missed shot. If that's not like that, there's a whole system that no one like leans into. That's something that I think could be done really effectively as like even just like as a proof of concept. I think Sayori is the character that would really benefit from that.
I'm the only one who's a little uncomfortable playing with a character that's suicidally depressed.
I think that element could also probably be toned down a little bit, but I don't think that's like necessarily the version of Sayori that should be there.
I didn't think she brought it up too uncomfortably in any of the games I played with her. No,
just the knowledge makes me really uncomfortable. Like she should be seeing somebody.
I think it's like the same thing with Ayano though, where it's like you should go see a therapist. It's more like I don't know. I think there's like an element to this that's like those things could be toned down because I don't think that's quite character in the version of the game that they're playing SPNatI. You know what I mean? Like it's not like always this version where it's like Monica's in complete control.
Well, anyway, time to move things along. Let's keep going so this doesn't go to 3 hours. Have no fear. Amy Rose is here. Yes.
I think Amy Rose. I think Amy Rose is really cute. I think the art's cute. I think she's cute. I questioned the decision of bringing someone with like a known canon love interest to the game, just as a matter of course. But I like her. I think she's cute.
I mean, it is unrequited love.
Yeah, I think there's like something. I don't know. I think Amy Rose is like very cute, but there's nothing in the character that's like, oh yeah, this excels. Like I think she's good. But she's like kind of like an all-rounder. She's like Mario. She's like the Mario in Smash. It's like she's good for what she is, but it's not particularly appealing to me personally.
I feel like a lot of the appeal of Amy Rose is a love of the Sonic franchise, and I don't come pre-equipped with the love of the Sonic franchise in any way. And as you said, like she talks a lot about being interested in someone else. And personally, I don't really need to know about that.
Where's her canon model? This is cowardice. What I see here on the roster is a lack of conviction. Just admit you want to fuck a 3 foot tall hedgehog.
I mean, who doesn't?
I'm doing it right now. moving on, just in time for in 2 months or so, Halloween again. It's Ghost Girl Perona from One Piece. Another stellar entry in the annals of Metalitar's work. What do you think, Arndress?
I think this is an amazing character.
Yeah.
Another character I went in with no impressions, no positive and negative impressions. I've seen one episode of One Piece, so I had no idea who this character was. But her demeanor, her tricks, and just her interactions, she's got like a lot of really great targeted lines.
Yeah.
Worked really well for me. I also thought her epilogue was fantastic. One of the better epilogues I've seen. Metalitar does do some of my favorite epilogues, and it's really obvious when he picks up tricks that he's learned from doing previous projects, just with the angles and how long to keep a scene going and just the variety. Definitely a character I love, and I think it'd be a character on Nagisa's preset table when she hits main roster.
So cute, so expressive, so polished. Very excellent. I mean, Metalitar has said like he loves One Piece, and it shows. Like the love he's poured into these One Piece characters. Anyway, what do you think of Perona and nmasp?
Oh, I fucking love Perona. Perona's great.
Yeah.
The thing that I really struggle with like Perona and Amida is like they're amazing characters, and like I really like Perona. I just like suck at targeting her. Like there's so many cool things. I'm just like, oh yeah, this is gonna be really easy to target. Then I sit there and I like stare at my screen. I'm just like, fuck. like having sucrose and like.
Well, she's very weird.
Well, like, but I love that shit though. It's like that's easy. Like I love that. It's like I could have sucrose and Perona talk about like the weird like spirit summoning shit, or like even though like sucrose is technically just like very effect things, they're not really spirits. I don't know. Like I really like Perona. Perona's probably my favorite Metalitar character.
Speaking of Pyrrha, here she is from Ruby. Another Amazon girl GF.
Yeah, how are we saying speaking of
Pyrrha?
how did that come up? Yeah, how'd that come up? We're talking about Perona.
Didn't you mention Pyrrha? No, you were talking about Nami.
Oh.
Whatever.
What? Okay,
they both
whatever.
start with P. Whatever.
Okay. What? Wait, what? No. Okay.
They're both redheads.
Okay.
Perona and Pyrrha. They both start with P.
Pyrrha, okay.
Just fucking talk about her. Let's keep them moving.
I really like Pyrrha, like her character. I've watched like 5 seasons of Ruby to try to settle an argument about Yang and Weiss way back. So I thought I'd better become accustomed to these characters. Anyway, I really like Pyrrha's character, and I feel like the way she's represented in game is very faithful to that. The art is great. The dialogue seems good. It's one of those cases, I remember Dilettante used to say, it's really difficult to write a character. He'd written Jasmine. Very difficult to write a character that's from a film, because in a film there's hardly any dialogue. And I feel like Pyrrha's in a similar situation. She's in like particular arcs of the Ruby series, but she doesn't really have a lot to say if you take all of her lines and put them together. So I think the expansion on her character feels really natural, and I think that is an amazing thing to see. I like Pyrrha.
I mean, the Mask-Made Coco apparently has like one scene, so.
Yeah, Cog helped, like in the sense that like Cog and I did it together. Like it's not just me that made it. It was a team effort.
Didn't even read the book first.
There's a book? Oh fuck, right. The book came out after the fact, and it was just like, oh, you stupid motherfucker, you complete idiot. Watch us just derail this entire character you built. And I'm like, God damn it.
I think they've released the book just to spy you.
It's true. It's just like, oh, I'll show you. You want to make this character like not conform to my view of LGBT things? Okay.
Anyway, that's how I felt about Pyrrha. How about the rest of you?
I like Pyrrha. I think like Pyrrha is one of those characters that I feel like is very interesting. I don't know if it's like my own brain being like very limited, but I just don't have a lot to say to her. I don't know. Like I think like she and Adrian get along really well, which is nice. But I also like I don't know how to write this like well. I guess. Like I think I have a lot of things I like about Pyrrha. I'm just like shitty at like articulating them. So
Pyrrha's very cute and down to earth. So she's fun to be with. It's just she can be a little over apologetic. She can have trouble getting into the game sometimes, I think. She can be a little dry and like over explain herself. But I like how she adds like a very unique body type. Sort of like the Amazon, statuesque buff type, but not like overly so, not like He-Man or She-Ra levels, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more realistic. Anyway, next we have, speaking of Amazon goddesses, we have Senko the helpful fox.
Yeah, definitely that archetype done well.
I've watched the first half of this anime to better understand Senko. I think she's captured well. Steering away from the younger side of her is difficult, but I think that Natsu got it well. She does capture the character in a way that seems authentic to the original. It's difficult for me to really understand why she's there, even though she does explain herself. But that's really the premise of the game. Who is there for a believable reason?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I clearly like Senko. I think she's good. I think like Senko has the opposite problem of Y'shtola, where like Y'shtola looks like she's like 85 years old, but is like 23. Senko is like, oh yeah, I'm 800 years old, and it's just like okay. So I don't know. I think she's cute. I think she does like a lot of really interesting things. Like she's not particularly like novel, I guess, but she is cute, and that's kind of where it is. I like what she writes about and what she does.
I like how Senko actually plays into the game's sexuality and dirty talk pretty well with the whole pampering thing. She's not afraid of like, oh, I'm so tiny, you could throw me around. That's just the basic stuff you'd expect out of a porn game.
Yeah.
She's cute and personable, and I'm targeting her. Sometimes it's hard to figure out how to target her. I wish I'd get more replies, but I like her.
Let's go just at Napsu. Reply to my shit. I sent you targeted lines. Why wouldn't you reply?
Now please respond.
Anyway, please respond.
I'm sure by now, as we're creeping into the third hour, our editor is calling out Mercy, and here she is.
Well played, but terrible. All right.
This is another rework Masquerade character, Mercy. I was really excited to see how she would go. I think she was classic Mercy, forgive me, original creators of her, but she was never a good character. So it was really refreshing to see.
You mean you didn't like the epilogue where you died and went to hell?
You know what? I like that. That is part of the Extreme Exhibitionist update, and I helped her implement that. That was from Mysterious D. That is not from her original authors.
Oh, of course it was from fucking Dranky.
It's a really funny concept to me.
Scientists baffled by a man's ability to fuck up every time. Literally cannot stop fucking up.
It's interesting.
Kind of reminds me of Romelia's ending in a way where it's like not necessarily a good outcome for the player, but this still alright.
It's such a Misty is such a fucking troll though. Like that is like the most troll epilogue that's ever been trolled in the history of trolling. It's such
is it the NmasP when you made fucking Ochako's epilogue?
Misty, rest in peace, you're a space pirate. I'm so sorry. Come back to us.
I still haven't finished that epilogue because someone told me there was a spoiler in it, and I'm not far enough in the series to know what that would be. So don't tell me anything.
It's probably fine.
It's probably fine.
Mercy.
Something I was really excited about for the potential in this project is, one, the Lonely Phone Box was doing the art, and the Lonely Phone Box has done many things that I enjoy, so I just was interested to see how his take on Mercy and the armor and the wings and that look so good, the headband. Also, with Bluecoin doing dialogue, Bluecoin has done a lot of projects and he's done them well, but he hasn't really done anyone with a lot of star power, and Mercy has a lot of star power. So I'll be interested to see how she goes in the future. It's my understanding Clockwork Foyer is working on the dialogue now.
Oh, good. I fucking love Clockwork Foyer.
Which means she'll be getting continual updates. That excites me too. I think there's a lot of promise in this project.
Clockwork Warrior's writing is so fucking good. It's great. I like the new Mercy. I'm not a Mercy main in Overwatch, but I like the presentation of the character. I think it's very adult and very good. Excellent work. A+ for me.
Clockwork Warrior did Hilda, right?
Yeah.
God, we've got so many new writers. I can't keep track of them. That's a very good thing.
I love what a good writer. I love Clockwork Warrior.
Hilda's cute.
All right, cool.
I'm really glad we finally got a Fire Emblem character in her.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, really.
Anyway, Mercy is also cute. Some people complained about her model a little bit. I think she looks fine. I'm glad this update came to fruition. Next, we have another rework. Wii Fit Trainer. Here she is. And remember when Wii Fit was the new hot thing?
No,
Damn.
never.
Is there Switch Fit?
It's Ring Fit. It's like this adventure game thing.
All right, nmasp. What do you think of Wii Fit Trainer?
I like her. She's cool. Good art update. Does pretty much what you expect her to do.
I like her as well. I don't know what's going on with this butt pose. I don't know why she doesn't have a butt crack.
It's just so it's just powerful. It's such a powerful butt pose.
Is that what happens when you work out enough? Your butt cheeks just separate.
It implodes on itself, or yeah.
I don't know. This is a prevailing style of button. I don't understand why. Why don't they have a crack? It's just like one tangential point of two curves.
I always like it when two things I like. I like it when people who used to contribute come back to do more. I always appreciate that. It's like when someone you used to work with comes back to the workplace and go, yeah, catch up. I also like it when characters that were abandoned in a bad state get reworks. So when Andrew has like put passion into this project, that is really exciting for me. It's good to see a character that was not in a great condition get so much better.
Yeah, she's apparently he's got like a new epilogue planned for her too, which is good.
Nice. That's good stuff.
I always liked Wii Fit Trainer for kind of playing up to the jerk off instruction thing, which, if you asked me, was always this game's main fetish, genre, basically. Anyway, yes. Speaking of lighting up the room, it's Lux. Here she is. She's illuminating her uterus.
Oh Jesus!
Is communicating to you that this is where your baby will grow.
Oh God. I like Lux. I think the new content for her is actually like there wasn't really anything of substance there in like old Lux. I like the new stuff a lot. I think she's very interesting. I hope she continues to get updates. I miss Zeus. I really like the artwork that was done for her, and I also just generally think I think she's good. Like, is she going to be a character that I'm like, hey, you should play SPNatI to like go read Lux? Not really, but if you're a League fan and you like the character, I think there's plenty of room for that. Like, she's like a magical girl, sort of. So it's neat. I think she's great.
The Lux rework Masquerade team was like the dream team. I don't know how, like it was the one where everything aligned. We tried to put in new people into each team so that they didn't have to like all rely on those people to do all the work. But some of those people didn't turn up. Some of those people did, but they didn't really do anything. Like the Lux team seemed to go almost perfectly, and it was exciting to see how many people put their own passion and contributions into Lux.
Lux is very cute. Definitely one of the strongest outcomes for the recent reworked Masquerade. Some of her dialogue can get a little repetitive. I played a game with her where she didn't really have any targeted lines, and she kind of repeated herself a lot. I think she could get into that and maybe fill out some of the sexuality a little bit more, but overall, I really like her. She's cute and just fun to play with. We're in the home stretch here. Another League of Legends character. I forget, nmasp, if you have any experience with League of Legends.
I'm not a League of Legends fan. I don't think I think that game was really bad for me, emotionally. My blood pressure is it probably shaved years off of my life due to blood pressure. Anyway,
here's Twisted Fate.
Yeah, Twisted Fate's good. I really like the character. I think as someone who's not really into that sort of stuff, I think he adds a lot to the game for the people that are. He's really good. The art's really strong. The character writing is very good. I definitely hope that he continues to get updates because he's good. He adds something to the game that wasn't there before, and I really do think a lot of the men that are coming out of the game are very, very good.
I really like his voice. I feel like it just feels good and consistent, and when I read a targeted line from Twisted Fate, I feel like, yes, this is how he would say it. I feel like many hits with that, and that's the real highlight of the character to me. Of course, plus the art.
Well, I do declare. Strong voice, strong art, very detailed. It's almost like it's by the same guy or something.
Zeus, return to us. We miss you.
Yeah. Very, very, very unique male pick. Or he's kind of an asshole, but also kind of suave, not afraid to hit on the ladies. It's good to have that kind of presence in the game.
It's good for the game.
Just a douchebag. Speaking of trying to get some tail, here we have Dust, Pyramid Head himself, from Dust and Elysian Tale. Speaking of men, we have a male furry. Do we even have a female furry? I guess Amy Rose. Kind of. Dust was on testing for a long time and in sponsorship for perhaps even longer, but he's finally made it. Here he is.
I was excited to see that he actually got that push from testing to main because I was worried for a while that it wouldn't happen. A lot of effort's been put into Dust, and I appreciate that. I think spnanon, you might be on the same page as me, is maybe a male character doesn't do so much for us personally, but I always like the expanding the game so that we can appeal to a broader audience.
Absolutely.
Agreed. Yep, that's I think Dust isn't for me. I think the character's interesting, well written. It's like there's just enough going on there that if you're not into this, like conceptually, you can still play a really fun game with Dust if you put him in as the male at your table. I like him. I think it's great that he got finished. I think there's something to be said about just like the push over the finish line is really important. So nice work.
Yeah. I think Dust is a fine character. He does have a little bit going on with like his companions and stuff that's kind of all over the place. I think what's going to hurt his popularity, besides being a male and a furry, is just the fact that he's got that hat, so he doesn't have like a really clearly readable face to attract players to him. But if you actually pick him, like I don't think he's a bad choice. It's just I feel like it's unfortunate that he kind of sputtered over the finish line the way he did, because he was kind of in limbo for so long that it was tough to generate excitement. But at least he didn't. At least he made it. That's more than a lot of characters can say.
I believe there was some late model work done on him, and I just feel like sometimes there's critique given on a model. Like we've mentioned different things about models even in this podcast, and that's not always you must fix this now, but sometimes it's, hey, if you're ever redoing it, just keep this in mind. Maybe the hair could have some more shading, not throw out the hair you have. And I feel like Dust as he was probably was okay. And so when people are sponsoring, I think that sometimes that should more go in the suggestions field and not necessarily in the flaws field. Like if you ever happen to remake this, please fix this and this.
All right. Now we're really in the home stretch here. We have Original the character, also known as Ibuki Miyota. It's Critical Darling from unabashed Ibuki Miyota fan, Blue Coin.
I like Blue Coins.
She's a guitarist. She's got ice powers or something.
I had no idea who the character that G is similar to was, so this is completely OC for me. I really enjoyed the way that because she's an OC, all of her exposition about her world is all you're going to get. In fact, someone posted a comment in her channel just yesterday or the day before saying they loved the character and they were heartbroken to find out that there was no more to learn. But I think the way that she does it was like in a way where the point of doing it was that I felt it was interesting to read, like what the other powers are of people in her world or what the band she likes. I just think she's really visually appealing to me. I love the twin tails. I love the plaid skirt. This might be my favorite Blue Coin OC.
I agree. I think she's definitely my favorite Blue Coin OC. I also think that Blue Coin continues to get better and better at writing his OCs, which is nice. I think Critical Darling is trying to do a lot of things, but she does them well. And I do hope she keeps getting updates. I think it's an interesting choice to go to, for instance, it's an interesting choice to write an OC that is very similar to another character, but I actually think it's not I think it was a good call in this case. I think it turned out really well, and it's very interesting. I really like her. I think she's good. Enjoy playing with her.
You could say she's a cover of Ibuki Miyota.
That's actually that's good. That's good. Good stuff, Spin.
Just put your own little spin on it.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, I will agree. She's probably the cutest of Blue Coin's OCs. I really like her.
Yeah, it's really good.
Like the way she looks.
Yeah, she's good.
Because Ibuki Miyota's an appealing character design, but yeah, steal from the best. That's how great art is made. And last but not least, we have May from Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire.
Who
Arndress can give some insight into because he helped with this project.
The writing was me and Sonomi and NGY777. He didn't talk a lot in public, but he did contribute too, and also a little bit from Walter as a late contribution, with art and mini costumes by Horse Killer. I elaborated a little bit on my feelings about her development in the Dawn section. It's such a nice thing to write for a character that has appealing poses. I get that with Nagisuna, which is nice. I also get that with Moon and other characters. Just the more appealing the pose is and the more diverse the pose is, I really feel like I can do a lot with it. And May was a character like that for me. Sometimes when I was scratching for a line, like a generic line, especially because don't we all love writing like non-targeted lines, I would pick the pose first and just type
Clothing, babe? Wow.
I would just type whatever fit that pose that sounded like it was in her voice.
It's a beautiful suffering writing generic lines.
Anyway.
We choose to write generic lines not because it is easy, but because it is hard.
This is my question to you. Which of her alt costumes is your favorite?
The classic one.
The classic one. That's the one that's the May I grew up with. Well, technically I grew up with the costume for Emerald, but potato.
Mm-hmm. The fact that she's got reskins means that she'll get a big boost for the two events, the Easter and the summer event, which is nice for her future.
I really want to make some alt costumes, but there's no point doing it until I'm actually happy with the base models. May and Jura can have some swimsuits. Revi has like a pretty good winter outfit that she already uses in her epilogue.
Like I said, May kind of runs into the typical Pokemon characters. I think she's cute though. She's cute. I like the dialogue. It's definitely
very cute.
Definitely, my criticisms of like Pokemon characters still stand. So, but I do like her. She's interesting.
Horse Killer really is just flexing his art skills here. It's like, I'll just make another another alt skin. No big deal.
Yeah, that's fine. She's gorgeous. Good work.
All right, and that completely catches us up for once. So episode 53 will be uncharted territory. Who knows who will be with me?
Who knows? It's a mystery.
The only thing for sure is that I will be here.
All right.
And I will talk about how I like Maya. All right. Well, we'll see how much content there is. But is there anything that either of you would like to say before we end?
I guess only my general philosophy is to look at the game two ways. One is as a complete game, as in everything, every incomplete, every offline character is part of the whole game, which is why I feel so strongly about not wanting a character to be in a bad condition offline. And that's why I do fixes. Cobrad's been doing some fixes on those too, and thank you to Cobrad. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Cobrad. Yeah, you did good work, dude.
The other part too is like looking to the future. Where will the game be in 4 years, like nmasp said, regarding OCs? Will it be hosted? Will it be developed? There's one day where, unfortunately, in an unforeseen future, the game won't be actively developed, and we can't anticipate when or why or how that will happen. So I just really want the game to be in its best place it can be, which is sometimes that drives my decisions, and that might not always be in the way that's the best for the short term, but that's my approach if we're ever discussing something.
Masp?
It's good to be back on the cast. I'm going to hate my life a lot less very soon, so I'll probably be on the next one as well.
I guess we'll find out. Corky is off saving the world at the moment, so we have the normal co-host.
Assuming I don't go to jail for like murdering some of these people, I will likely be on the next cast. So, as ever,
my lips are sealed. Edit this out. Edit out his confession to murder.
I haven't killed anyone yet.
The nmasp tapes.
Don't preclude it from happening in the future.
I want to talk about why I did what I did.
Thanks for the cast, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to say like the game is.
It's in a better state than it's ever been.
I'd say in a pretty healthy spot.
We have a lot of new contributors.
Yeah, like honestly, all the new creators that are coming in that I can't even keep track of all the writers.
Yeah,
that's great to see.
Agreed. Like I think that's the best part for me is just seeing that it's like, oh, it's not just the three of us, kind of writing things forever. It's legitimately new people are coming in and continuing to grow. I think the growth is the really important thing. It's like some people can come in really strong, but I think seeing people like grow over time is really, really cool.
It's just important to get new people because we can't stop old people from leaving. They're all going to do it at some point.
Yeah.
Rip to all the fallen.
When will user come back from the war?
A moment of silence.